I just wanted to reach out because I don't know how you do it. And I feel like somebody needs to ask you how you do it. Every once in a while, I'll see you pop up and be like, is this really on Fox News? This person saying this thing?
Donald Trump was indicted in 4 jurisdictions around this country by juries of regular Americans.
How did you end up being this voice of reason on Fox News?
I've been at Fox forever. I joined formally just after the 2016 election. Always felt like the best place for someone like me, a moderate, to be having these real conversations with people about how we can come together and be able to also present ideas from the other side of the aisle to the biggest audience, which I think is, something that we obviously royally screwed up in the election, not taking the conversation and the fight to people where they are and where they're consuming. I guess more on the bio side of how I ended up at Fox is my old boss, who was Bill Clinton's pollster in the 90s, was a Fox contributor. He started encouraging me to build up my media skills, and he was like, this would be a really great outlet for you. And he got me booked on my first few shows. And then that started the ball rolling, more and more shows and requests, and then some primetime ones. And Hannity was the first really big host to give me a break. And he would have me on a show all the time. And he eventually, him and his team created a segment for me and Jesse Waters called Jesse versus Jessica. Amazing opportunity to be able to have, a weekly slot on such an enormous show. And it allowed me also to start building this rapport with Jesse that I feel like has carried over to the 5.
Sometimes it seems like you're kind of all alone out there, but they still give you the space to say this stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I'm happy you noted that and also noticed it, because I feel like sometimes people, especially when they only consume the show through 60-second clips, 15 seconds, and it's like, this show is actually an hour long, right? There's a lot of exchanges. If you want to have a particularly myopic view of how the hour went, you can look at just what one person said. And there are people who are diehard X fans, Greg Gutfeld fans.
There are?
Greg,
no, I'm just kidding.
A lot more Gutfeld fans are watching than Jessica Tarlov fans are watching. Everything will be framed as Greg Gutfeld, dragged Jessica Tarlov or obliterates Jessica Tarlov, how I'm going to be fired, and petitions to get me fired and all of this stuff. So it's kind of crazy how there are so many different worlds functioning at one particular moment. Even with the interrupting, I still 99% of the time feel like I do have the space to say what I've got to say. And some of that is just from years of swimming upstream that I know how to kind of box out a little, right? Like to get my space, and how important it also is to make sure that you're injecting some lightness or levity into the conversation. Abortion is another instance of the tyranny of the minority. They're taking minority positions and running with them.
Pro-life is in a minority position.
It is, actually. The 69% is the highest that it's ever been recorded that now support abortion at least through the first trimester.
First trimester?
Yeah. So you don't have to necessarily push back on someone by deeply data-rooted point, right? You can make a joke back to someone, stop that flow of interruption. There will be another day. And I'm not looking to give up on something massive that I really want to get across. Dobbs' decision. I don't think any of us really treat the show as our last stand. There's an understanding that there is a rapport that's going on and that it's a conversation. And the point of the 5 and why it's been so successful, 13 years, and we've been the #1 show in cable for over 2 years, kind of conversations that we're having are reflective of what the real world looks like. People who have friends from across the aisle, have family members from across the aisle. I love that about the show. I love that the viewers get that from us. And it makes it easier to have those tense moments where you might feel like you're out on the island by yourself. And you're like, I'm actually with friends who may vehemently disagree with me, but no one who doesn't think that I don't know what I'm talking about, who doesn't think that I've done my homework and that I'm not coming from a good and decent place.
A lot of people are giving up on the idea of even communicating with the other side. And there you guys are having these debates. And the fact that it's happening on Fox gives it a resonance that it wouldn't have in another place. For me anyway. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. One of the things that comes up a lot, especially during campaign season, is this idea about Democrats going on Fox. Pete Buttigieg does it a lot. Bernie does it. Do you think that's a good idea for them to do?
Yeah. I'm hugely supportive of it. There are very few instances where you could point to and say that was a really big mistake that so-and-so did X media, let alone sitting down with someone like Brett Baer or Martha McCallum. Pete was using that as transportation secretary. He was trying to get a lot of information out. Why would you give up the opportunity to talk to the absolute biggest audience? And even for people who are not necessarily watching Fox, they're consuming clips about it. And it's oftentimes setting the news agenda. So I think that it's great.
Pushback would be that it gets clipped. It's very selective in the way that rest of the world consumes it. But I agree. I think it should be done. If you're a good enough communicator, you can go anywhere and deliver the message.
The clips are why most liberals think of Pete as conservative slayer. They didn't sit down and flip on Special Report. They saw a Midas Touch clip, a Holler clip. I think it's nothing but value add, even if someone, especially if you know what you're talking about and you have an important point to make, it's all upside. If somebody even sees that you are making the effort to sit down and have those conversations. And I don't know how anyone looking at the election results in particular could be advocating against this. Our media strategy has been appallingly bad. Right? We just ceded all of this ground to them, from podcasts to cable news interviews.
Certainly fair. Where are you on the gloom and doom spectrum right now as far as where things are headed? I mean, I'll just speak for myself first. I'm pretty pessimistic. I cover the legislature here. You know, we're not a swing state, but we are the tip of the spear with a lot of the culture war stuff. And these are pretty extreme people. Second Trump term, where he's kind of figured out that he can get away with kind of anything. I'm very worried about where things are going. How about yourself?
Yeah. I feel the same. I mean, I'm not in Tennessee, which is definitely different vibes. Most important, stand up for democratic values when you are pushing against the grain like that. So I think it's really great that you do honest reporting about the extremism of the party, especially in more conservative places, the Republican Party. I share your pessimism. I'm in deep state of anger at the party, at Biden, at Kamala. My mom called me this morning and she was like, well, what did you think of Biden's speech? I mean, conceptually, I liked it, right? Like, I agree with all these things. I think that this is going to turn into an oligarchy. I think we need, term limits. I'm scared about the future of the Supreme Court, like all of that stuff. But watching him and thinking, why did they tell us that this was going to be okay? How do we end up in this mess? Not that there wasn't a global incumbency factor. Maybe we would have had a primary and whoever emerged the victor, which I think could have feasibly been Kamala Harris, would have lost. But I feel like we weren't given or giving ourselves enough of a fighting chance, especially with this kind of existential threat on the other side of it. And I've been thinking a lot about what role I played in that, because I definitely thought Biden could do it up until a certain point. On the pessimistic side, I am really concerned because it feels like all the guardrails are off, anything goes, and then you add to it how disengaged everybody is. And I know that the election just happened, and this typically is what ensues, right? The side that loses pulls back. Wake me up in a few months, but it feels like there's going to be a lot of very concerning things going on that, if we are not on high alert, could slip through the cracks or just become normalized. A new generation of voters who just think this is what life is.
Yes. Just as a last thing, I just got to know, like, are you guys all friends outside of the set? Is there like a hang there? What's the dynamic?
Yeah. I mean, everyone is busy and has lives, and a bunch of us have small kids. Yeah. Everyone is friends and has unique and different relationships that come from different times of working together at Fox. When there was the baby formula crisis, Janine got me baby formula. She knew a guy. I don't know what that means. It felt very mobstery. Jesse, I already told you about it. We worked together a long time. We used to ride the subway home together afterwards, and I'm friendly with his wife. Greg and Dana have been working together forever. They're super close, and Dana is a fantastic friend and a great mentor. And Greg and I are neighbors holding out in downtown Manhattan. Yeah.
That's where I'm from originally, by the way.
Really?
I'm from the city, yeah.
Oh, where?
I went to Dalton until I was 13. And
I went to Dalton.
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that.
So I graduated Dalton in 2002.
All right, so I'm a little older than you, but I bet if we played the name game, we would come up with a few. Zach Miller. All right.
Wait, isn't that Aaron Miller's older brother?
Aaron Miller's older brother. There you go.
Aaron Miller's
I know Aaron very well.
That's so funny. And then did you move to Tennessee?
Went to high school in Northern California. And then after college at Northwestern, I lived in LA for 15, 16 years. And then when my wife and I met and had a baby, we found Nashville and kind of fell in love with the area. Came here in 2016, and then this guy Trump won. I wasn't into politics at all, but I decided I had to get involved.
You've been electrified by this.
Totally. And then I ran for Congress against
Yes, I did know that. Yeah.
I ran against Marsha Blackburn, and then she decided to leave and run for Senate. Then I ended up running against Mark Green, who's also special. He beat me, and then I just wanted to stay involved, so I started the Holler. That's basically what happened.
That's so cool.
But I really do appreciate your voice, and it's important. So thanks for coming on here and giving me the time, and
my pleasure.
Keep doing what you're doing, because it's very needed.
You too. Thank you for having me.